With training camp right around the corner, the Toronto Maple Leafs are looking to add a few new faces, and some of these players may shock you, and I'm going to break it all down for you coming up on this episode of Hattrick HQ. But before I get into it, just got to say we're on the road for 5,000 subscribers here on the channel, so if you're not subscribed already and you want to keep up to date on this daily NHL content, make sure down below and hit that subscribe button. But with that said, let's jump right into the main topic of the video today, which is it's PTO season. And yes, PTO season has to be one of my favorite times of the off season. With training camp coming up, it's looking like the Leafs are looking to bring in a few guys here on professional tryout contracts to see if they can crack this roster and earn themselves a contract. It's always my favorite time because you get to see those, bottom six, those extra defensemen kind of come in and try to fight for their spot. I mean, just a couple years ago, we seen Zach Aston Reese, who came in on a PTO and made the team and was played pretty well for Toronto during his time there. So hopefully we can find another one of those gems this time. But there's three names here that jumped off the page to me that I had to share with you guys. And the first one we're going to talk about today is Nick Cousins, just coming off the Stanley Cup win with the Florida Panthers. Obviously, Nick Cousins has been that kind of pesty type player throughout his career, showing shades of Brad Marchand out there, but has been a solid, bottom to fourth line guy for every team he's been on. And it's looking like he could be a guy that the Leafs see to try to bring in on a PTO here for this training camp. Obviously, like I said, coming off that Stanley Cup win, he's also coming off the best statistical season of his career, where he put up 9 goals and 18 assists for 27 points in 29 games. And yes, I like this to bring this guy in on a PTO, because this is a guy who could easily crack that fourth line, and having that, pesty type player down there alongside a guy like Ryan Reeves and David Kampf would just make that fourth line, hard to go up against. They'll be flying at you every time they're out there on the ice. That would just be fun to see him paired up with a guy like Reeves. I think they could really have some fun together on that fourth line. But Nick Cousins, he's a guy who had his best statistical season, like I said, this year. So he's coming off a good year. He's still looking for a contract this year. And this is a guy who you could bring in on a PTO, let him work out with the team, see what he's like around the players, see what he's like out in the training camp. Maybe then he makes it out of there and Treliving and the Leafs offer him a contract. You won't be looking at, a crazy contract for this guy. The Leafs are already dealing with cap issues as it is, but if they could bring Nick Cousins in at the league minimum or just above, and he plays good in this training camp, this is definitely an option we could see. I really like, bringing that kind of pesty player in, a guy who's tough to play against, coming off the best year of his career, where he won a Stanley Cup at that. So it would just make sense for them to bring him in on a tryout. If he plays good, he makes the team. He helps the team with the experience of winning a Stanley Cup. He helps the team by going out on that fourth line and just being an absolute pest. And he would just be one of those guys that I think Leafs fans would fall in love with, just how he gets under the opponent's skin and stuff like that. But this is a very interesting option that I had to share with you guys. But there's another one that I want to bring up here, and that is James Van Riemsdyk, JVR, one of the guys who a lot of Toronto fans know. He was a Toronto Maple Leaf for a number of years in his career. We did talk about this in a live stream a couple weeks ago, but that was actually bringing him in on a league minimum. This is bringing him in on a PTO. Obviously, he's 35 now. He played on the Bruins last season, where he put out the Toronto Maple Leafs, unfortunately. But in 71 games, he scored 11 goals and had 27 assists for 38 points while playing only 13 minutes per game. So he's putting up great numbers for the amount he was actually out on the ice. And at 35 years old, he still looks like a good player and could easily inject some offense into this bottom six, whether you play him on the third line, which is where I would put him at, or maybe you put him in on this fourth line. But it would just be nice to see JVR come in on a PTO, hang out with the boys. He did play 1 year with Nylander, Matthews, and Marner before he left. So, obviously the whole team and the whole landscape of the Toronto Maple Leafs has changed since then. but getting him in on a tryout, seeing what he's like with this roster, see what he's like, physically out on the ice, and if you like what you see and you want to bring JVR in and he's able to sign for, $1 million, I think that's what his contract was last year, or just under that, I think this is a guy that you look at because, he's a guy who last season put up that many points with only 13 minutes time on ice. So if you give him a little bit more here on this third line, he could definitely spark the offense throughout the bottom six and could really be a nice addition. Again, he is 35 years old, but he still has it. We've seen it last year in Boston, and I'd like to see him come back in Toronto. Maybe his last season, retire as a Leaf, I think would just be fitting for his career and helping win this team, a Stanley Cup. I think that would just be awesome to see for JVR, and I really hope that we do see him on a PTO, and then eventually he does get league minimum or just above that to whether he's an extra forward or whether he if he gets in like 40-50 games. I mean, that would be great to see out of him as well. But this would be a great guy just to have around the locker room. He's been in a lot of locker rooms in his career. He knows the team dynamic a little bit through Marner, Matthews, and Nylander. He's not coming in completely fresh. He knows a few guys there, so I think it would be cool to see him back in Toronto and retire as a Leaf. But there is one more guy that I did want to share with you guys here, and that is Jarrod Tinordi. Yes, another defenseman. And obviously right now with the whole Jani Hakanpää situation, nobody really knows, what he's like. Is he completely healthy? We haven't really got full clearance on that. Is he going to be able to play that many games? But Jarrod Tinordi is a guy who you can bring in on a PTO, see how he is in training camp, and then go from there. This is a guy who doesn't need to be a starting defenseman. He's fine with being a seventh defenseman. He's been that in his career before. I mean, just last season, I believe he had like 40 or 45 games with the team he was with, which was the Florida Panthers. I do believe winning a Stanley Cup. A lot of Panthers players here today, but he was with the Blackhawks. Sorry, got Nick Cousins and Jarrod Tinordi mixed up. But they also say here, in 52 games last year, he had 9 points, all assists with 94 blocks, 174 hits. That is the ideal depth for a defenseman for Treliving, and this is exactly how he's built his blue line. Big, physical, shot blocking defenseman. They say additionally, with him being signed to a PTO, if he gets off to a bad start in training camp, then the Maple Leafs can have a fallback option in Dakota Mermis or Philippe Myers, two guys who they signed on two-way contracts, which we already talked about here on the channel. But I do like Jarrod Tinordi a lot. I think this is a perfect example of a Mark Giordano type defenseman. He might be a little bit down on the totem pole from Mark Giordano. Obviously, Mark Giordano, Norris winning defenseman, but Jarrod Tinordi is a solid blue liner. He is a guy who is going to go out there. I keep saying it, go to battle for you. He's going to be a warrior. He's going to lay the body. He's going to get down in front of those shots and stop as many pucks from going to the crease as he can. And if he can get into 40 to 45 games and do this for you, I think this is a perfect option for him. It's a great option to have if Jani Hakanpää is out or has to end up on LTIR or something like this. It's great to have a fall option here in Jarrod Tinordi. Sign him to PTO. If you're getting closer and closer to the end of the training camp, you're liking what you see, but you're hearing Hakanpää is going to be fully ready to go, you can just let him go. People are going to see what he did in Leafs training camp, and he can go on elsewhere. But if the Hakanpää situation is still up in the air, you get this guy in at a league minimum, a guy who can get in for 40 to 50 games. It's definitely worth that cap hit, and definitely worth it because, like I said, this guy is a tremendous physical defensive defenseman, and that's why this is such a good fit for Treliving, because this is how he's built his entire blue line. So having an extra guy who is exactly like that is definitely going to be beneficial for them, and it just gives them wiggle room where if a defender gets injured or you need him to step in, he's a good matchup against a certain team, you have that other option. And I think this would be great to see, and I would love to see all three of these guys signed to PTOs. Do I think they all three will be signed coming out of training camp? No, I don't think that is a possibility. We might see one, I'd very be surprised if we seen two of them signed to a PTO out of training camp, but are signed to an actual contract off of their PTOs. But it would be interesting to see. We did see last season, I believe it was Kiefer Bellows who signed, was a PTO with the Marlies and played tremendous down there. So there is a lot of potential here for people signing a PTO and then going on to have a great season. And if I was to pick one here of who I would love to see into a PTO, it would have to be James Van Riemsdyk. I think he would just be, you know, one of those guys who comes back to Toronto and fans would love him. He would love it, and I think it would just be great to see him in this bottom six of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But not to knock, you know, Cousins or Tinordi. I think both these guys are great players as well. But I would love to see James Riemsdyk to a PTO. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Who do you guys think is going to sign to a PTO? Is someone that we haven't mentioned already today? One that I really want to say is Phil Kessel. I want to see him to a PTO. I don't even know if that's possible, but I want to see it. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comments section. I really love seeing your guys' thoughts on everything we talk about here on the channel. But we're going to get into the second topic, or everybody's favorite topic actually today, which is comment of the day. And the comment of the day today goes to Dan Fram. Dan says, just started watching you, buddy. Love your enthusiasm and explaining what's going on in a clear way. Appreciate the kind comment there, Dan. I really appreciate seeing all your guys' comments, but really like that one. It means a lot when someone's saying, hey, we actually like what you're doing here. It means a lot to me, and I love seeing all your guys' comments and stuff down below, even if they're negative sometimes. It's great to see everybody's opinion on what's going on around the league. I love reading them. But shout out to you, Dan, for commenting on the video. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure down below, hit that like button. It helps push these videos out to all the Leafs fans out there on YouTube. Also, comment on the video. You might be featured on the next comment of the day, just like our buddy Dan was here today. And subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we're trying to get 5,000 subscribers before the end of the summer. So if you're not subscribed, please help us get us one more sub closer. We'd really appreciate it. And if you want to check out a video I did yesterday on a Marner trade yet again, it'll be popping up on your screen right now. But as always, I've been your host, KC. Keep your stick on the ice.